Sit. Look, these steps, they're everywhere because we are going to finish our story about Athens first, and then we are going to climb up there. In Athens, at the end of 6th century BC, we have anarchy after the younger son of the dictator, a small dictator, was expelled from the city. The strong families of the city, trying to impose their own rulers, they started killing prominent men of other families. And the situation became just terrible. This terrible situation lasted for years. So we passed from monarchy to oligarchy, to dictatorship, to anarchy, and now the situation seems that everything is under distraction in Athens. That made an Athenian called Clisthenes, a nobleman, for whom we don't know anything before that moment, being afraid of his life in the city. He decided to organize a meeting of all Athenian men over 20 years old. For this meeting, he needed a place. And the place was the former cemetery of the city, which was the closest to the city flatland. That place became the first city square in history. The first city square in history. There, Clisthenes, the year 508, gathered the Athenians over 20 years old, and he made to them a dramatic speech describing the situation of the city and telling to them that if they will continue being under anarchy, very soon all will be dead. So, the most precious things of this city, of this place, definitely are not the mountains that surround the city, it's not the sea that surrounds the Athenian peninsula, but themselves. And he resembled the assembly of the Athenian citizens with the human body. He said that we should find a way not to live in suspicion and fear of each other. But we have to find a way to cooperate harmoniously like the parts of the same human body. That is tremendously important for the development of the culture, but also for God's plans. Because some centuries later, another group of people is resembled and modelized after the human body, and this is the Church of Christ. The assembly of the citizens became now the ruling power of the city, the supreme authority. And from the term, which in Homer means the human body, demas, and the term karatos, which means state and power, is formed the name of this new political system that no one could imagine before. Democracy. Democracy. Democracy literally means the state and the power of the body. The body. Initially meaning the human body. And then, we have the group of the Athenian citizens as a body. Today, when we say democracy, we mean something else. We mean representative democracy, which is republic. The Athenian democracy was direct democracy, and was expressed with a direct participation of the citizen to the public life. For that reason, all men over 20 years old had to be gathered at least 4 times per month in the town square. Greeks call the town square agora. Romans call the same place forum, to sit down and to discuss all the state cases and issues, everything, foreign policy, finances, religion, army, everything, and to make decisions. They made their decisions by voting, lifting up their hands. It was open voting, and everybody knew what the other voted and was able to support his decisions by arguments. The Athenian society of that time was divided into groups. The rich people, the landowners. Athens has a very poor agriculturally meaning land. So the landowners had on their hands all the production of the food supplies. And they were afraid of a redistribution of the land. Yeah, they saw all these changes as very revolutionary. And because they were afraid to participate to such a scheme, they kept themselves out from the body, privates. But when the system started functioning and there was not any claim about the land and about the properties and all these things, these people found themselves on the side of the society because they had excluded themselves willingly from the decision making. And because of that, the term private in Greek became negative. Private means the one who is not able to create relations, to be in the body, to become a part of the body, to participate to the decision making. And so the privates were identified with foolish people. And the term private passed in other languages like yours with that second, the negative meaning. Now, do you know the term private in Greek is idiotis? So, we have in Athens at the time the ones who are active members of the city. The term for the city is polis. So they were politicians, participants in the public life, participants in the decision making, participants in the body, actively. And the other ones, the privates, who had excluded themselves from the decision making and the body, were privates, idiots. Idiots. The decisions of the body had to be executed. And for that reason, they needed an executive committee, a government. And for that, they had annual elections. For every civic office, instead of preparing ballots, the Athenians erected a lottery machine. And all Athenians, based of course in their free will, were welcome to put their name in the lottery machines, becoming at once potential rulers of their own place. That was really revolutionary, equalizing all the citizens to the most high level of authority and responsibility, that of the ruler, the rulers of the world. The Athenian democracy, because of that, brought on the stage of authority and responsibility for the common life the simple human being as a free citizen, a free person. And this is how the human rights appeared. Another very important step ahead to the time of the church. The Athenian democracy took the simple human being from nothing and made him the most important element of the society. And the gospel comes and says, yes, even for God, the most important element of the society is the simple human as a free person, free to decide. And the gospel takes the human being from that level, brought by the Athenian democracy, to the level of God's Son. Because God offered for that element the highest price, which is the blood of His Son. The most important daily expression of the Athenian democracy was the right of all Athenian citizens, every time when the assembly was gathered, the body was gathered, to stand in front and to deliver a message, to speak to the assembly for everything he thought was important for the assembly. For that reason, in the town square, the agora, the forum, now appears a small, short platform, just one step higher than the ground level, so the speaker to step upon it to be seen and heard. And because it was just a step higher than the ground level, it was called step. The Greek term for step is bema. Now, saying that everyone had that right, we have to determine the time, because the assembly couldn't stay in the forum, in the agora, forever, listening people who didn't know how to finish their speeches. So, beside the speaker on the bema was placed a water clock, giving to the speaker only 6 minutes time to express himself and to leave the place for the next speaker. In the case he was not able to accomplish his speech in these 6 minutes, he was interrupted, something for which he was ashamed, and the place was given to the next speaker. So an Athenian, before requesting the bema to speak, he had to be well prepared for that. And this is what made the Athenians to feel that they needed more education. This is what made the city of Athens a city of philosophers. What an Athenian usually said to the assembly. The Athenian who decided to use the bema to be addressed to the assembly, to the body, usually did that because he had noticed a problem in the public life. But it was not enough for him to describe the problem, because the problem was possibly obvious too many. In the case he decided to speak for the problem, he had also to show his wisdom in front of the assembly and through arguments to suggest the solution. He had to be expressive, the time was very short, so he had to classify his thoughts, he had to find the right terminology to be clear, to be understandable. He had to be persuasive that he was not wasting the precious time of the assembly with lesser things. And finally, he had to present in front of the assembly his credentials that he was a loyal citizen, working not for his own interests, but for the common good of the body. Now, this speech from the Bema, which lasted 6 minutes and had these 5 characteristics, reason why he likes to speak: wisdom, the solution; expression, persuasion, and credibility, was called logos. Very important, non-translatable Greek term. From that term, we have in English terms like logic, logistics, a term which was not used for first time in Athens. That term was used for first time on the other side of the Aegean Sea in Ephesus, the time of the pre-Socratian philosophers. The philosophers who were looking nature, who were overwhelmed by nature, and who arrived to the conclusion that behind nature is one great mathematical mind, an artist, a mathematician, the cosmos maker, the unknown God. The unknown God. One of them, who is considered to be the representative of the Ephesian school, the school of Ephesus, called Heraclitus, studying nature, he found out that in nature we have a constant motion and replacement of the things. And the paradox, the great surprise, that nature remains the same. He attributed this structure and the preservation of this structure to the divine logic. And he is the one who, for first time, called the divine logic, the author of the divine logic, Logos, identifying the great mathematical mind, the cosmos maker, the unknown God, with that term, Logos. Heraclitus wrote one book, and the title of his book was About Nature. And the first verse of his book is this: although Logos is ruling everything, unfortunately the humans still pass their life according to their mind. 7 centuries later, 7 centuries after Heraclitus, and 6 centuries after the Athenian democracy, Apostle John, in the same city where the use of this term started, writes his gospel to say that the Logos has a human identity and is called Jesus of Nazareth. God is the God of all nations. And if the most important event ever happened on this planet is the visit of divinity to his own creation in human shape, then definitely all history, the history before that event and the history after this event, should point to that event and all the history around. There is not important thing which happened on this planet, which is not related with the event of the events. The visit of the Creator to his own creation. We could speak about the Athenian democracy for hours. I would like to make the long story short, telling to you that this political system lasted only 49 years and never again was repeated in any other human society, even in Athens. This political system introduced to the world a new culture, the culture of democracy, the culture which appreciates highly the value of the simple human being. This culture is called by the Romans, some centuries later, classical culture, and is the foundation of what we call today Western culture. To this Athenian culture was initiated by his teacher Aristotle, a crazy boy king called Alexander the Great. And in 10 years, he, with his campaigns, made this culture of this tiny little city-state called Athens World Heritage. The first mission field in the history of the gospel is cultivated for centuries, having as a plow that culture, the classical culture, and as a farmer holding that plow, this crazy boy King Alexander the Great. When all these things happened in Athens, on the other side of the Aegean, in Asia Minor, we have also made major events. The king of Persia, Darius, had expanded his vast empire from the Black Sea down to Egypt and from the Aegean Sea all the way to India. And he had conquered, of course, one by one, all the Greek city-states of Asia Minor. Athenians, feeling relatives with them, and being on the other side of the Aegean, decided to help them by sending to them aid and help. Now that became a very good pretext for Darius to attack Athens, to come in Europe, and to claim himself master of Europe. He was already the master of Asia and the master of Africa after he conquered Egypt. And now is the time of Europe. The year 490 BC, 100,000 Persian soldiers were crossing the Aegean to come here and destroy Athens. When Athenians heard that such an army is approaching the city, they were scared to death. The assembly was gathered in the Agora, the town square, and they tried to see where they should face the situation. And there they made two very important decisions. The first was that all men of Athens, from the age of 16 to the age of 65, had to join the army. The second was related with the slaves. Slavery at the time was practiced, and in the city were slaves. And if one of these slaves should escape to the Persian camp, revealing the secrets of the city, then the very difficult position of the city should become even worse. So, what shall we do with the slaves? May we kill them all before the arrival of Persians to be a little bit more safe? What to do? Athenians brought all the slaves at the town square. And they discussed about them, and they made a really remarkable decision. They decided to set them all free, and at the same time to claim them all new Athenian citizens with full political rights equal to themselves. Enough for the ones who were able to fight on their side. From this moment and for a while, which is identified with the golden age of the Athenian democracy, the city of Athens was an exceptional place on earth, having only free people. Having only free people. After that decision, Athenians gathered a total army of 10,000. Still, very small army. One Athenian for 10 Persians. One Athenian for 10 Persians. Athenians didn't expect any victory. For that reason, they decided to face the Persians not outside of the city walls. In the city were children, women, and elderly people. And they needed time to evacuate the city. So they decided to leave from here and to face the Persians at the place where was expecting them to dock. A little port city called Marathon. They went to Marathon to die with honor, defending their land and their freedom, giving the time to the people of the city, the elderly people, the women and the children, to evacuate the city. But the master of history had a totally different idea. At the end of this day, the day of the Marathon's battle, the Persians had lost more than 6,000 soldiers, while from the Athenian camp were killed only 193. Athenians claimed that during this battle saw supernatural powers fighting on their side. The victory was totally unexpected even by themselves. And this is why we have a soldier who, after he fought all the day and dressed in full armor, decided to run from the battlefield to the city to announce to the people of the city the good news of victory, and there was not necessary for them to evacuate the city. This man is the first marathon runner and the only one of antiquity. The Persians left, but 10 years later they came back. The year 480, the king of Persia, Xerxes, the son of Darius, a biblical figure, the husband of Esther, decided to come and to destroy the city of Athens personally. And he exited from Asia, crossing Dardanelles, leading all his army against Athens. The number of his army is estimated by the ancient authors to 1,700,000 soldiers. Here we have almost literally, the attack of an elephant against an ant. The Persian army crossed Thrace, Macedonia, and Thessaly without fighting any resistance. There was not even a thought for resistance. The world up to that time never had seen such an army marching with all its military equipment. The only resistance this army found was organized by the king of Sparta, Leonidas, and his 300 soldiers in a narrow passageway called Hot Gates, Thermopylae, a place with thermals. Leonidas delayed the Persian army there 4 days. These 4 days were time enough for the Athenians to put on their ships all the people who were not able to fight and the animals they had, and to bring them to the islands, evacuating the city. When Xerxes arrived in the city was empty. And Xerxes leveled the city completely. The city disappeared. And when somebody could say, now, the city of Athens is erased forever from the records of history, again, we have a divine intervention. The Persian admirals, considering the way from Athens to Corinth shorter through the Straits of Salamis, an island which is very close to the mainland of Athens, they entered to the straits without estimating the size of their ships. When they realized their mistake, they were panicked and trying to maneuver and to come out from the straits, they started crashing upon their own ships and they destroyed their own navy. That reminds the battles of the Old Testament. And they left their army, this enormously big army, without food supplies. And this is what made Xerxes to go home. Athenians felt safe to return after a year, the year 479. Coming back, the first thing they did was to reorganize the body of their society. And the second, to rebuild the city. This is the time when the monuments we are going to see upon the Acropolis were erected. This is why these monuments are a symbol today, because they were erected by free people and not slaves. The first officially made structure, building, did by free people only. The precision and the quality of the aesthetics of these monuments is a great witness of that thing. They were all free. You cannot create what they created under the threat of the whip. Second, these people experienced the best ever human-made political system, direct democracy. And the third, these people were happy. Not only because they survived from such an attack, but also because they saw the enemy, an elephant, in comparison with themselves, considered to be an ant, to turn the back and to go home. Is there any question up to this point? Now we are going to walk at the southern slope of the Acropolis, and we are going to see first what? The first theater of the Western culture. And after that, we are going to see, before we reach the Acropolis, the medical center of the ancient city of Athens, the hospital, the place of priests, physicians like Hippocrates, Galen, Theophrastus, and many others. We are going to make a stop to see and to speak about what theater is and how theater was born here in Athens, and we are going to make another stop close to the temple of the healing god, Asclepius, which was the medical center of the city. And then we are going to reach the Acropolis. Okay?
Can I pull you up?
At least we don't have any young kids with us that are jumping up and going.